Hello everyone, thanks for tuning into today's video. It looks like we've got some proper spring-like weather coming up towards the weekend and into next week. It could start to get really quite mild indeed, maybe seeing temperatures pushing up in towards the mid to high teens perhaps on Sunday, and maybe through the start of next week we might start to see high pressure building in a warm position. Of course, we've had a lot of high pressure through the spring, but it's been in a very cold position up over Scandinavia and Greenland, but it looks as though as we go through next week we could start to see high pressure building somewhere around Central Europe, maybe around France, and that could just start to bring in some quite warm air from the south. So it does look as though spring is finally starting to push in now, and we really are looking at some quite dramatic increases in temperatures, really, when you think how cold it's been so far this spring. Now, for a go on video, just want to make sure the advertising will usually be video ads on my pages here at GasWebBiz.com, so please play those video ads. You should be supporting GasWebBiz.com by doing that. So this is the GFS chart for Saturday the 13th of April. I'm looking at this deep area of low pressure in the Atlantic. We've also got a bit of a build of pressure going on up over France. It's really the squeeze between the low pressure in the Atlantic and the high pressure trying to build in Central Europe. It's going to start to push those winds in from the south and start to bring that warmer air up from the tropical Atlantic and from the Mediterranean. So this is the upper air temperatures for Saturday. We see that we've got the 5 Celsius isotherm there to the south and to the west of the country. That's quite warm air around that 5 Celsius line, and behind it we're still in pretty cool air really as we go into the weekend. We start the weekend under pretty cool air, but we are going to find that warm air begin to push up. We're also going to find some quite heavy rain developing out in the Atlantic down to the southwest of the country through the course of Saturday. But as we go through into Saturday, we're going to find everything shifting around into the south. So that low pressure will deepen in the Atlantic, becoming really quite deep indeed, 955 millibars. The pressure is building here through Central Europe, and we're beginning to squeeze those winds up from the south. It will be quite windy on Saturday, so it won't necessarily feel that warm, but this southerly wind is bringing up some really quite balmy air indeed from the south. These are the upper air temperatures for 6 o'clock in the evening on Saturday. We see that the 5 Celsius isotherm there is beginning to move northwards on that southerly wind. Notice 10 Celsius HPA air beginning to develop down over France and Spain. That's been pulled up out of the tropical Atlantic and the Mediterranean. That's really quite warm air indeed. If you're off down to Spain at the weekend, it's going to turn very warm, I think, indeed, down there. And for us, yes, we've got these southerly winds moving up across the country. We've also got quite a bit of rain, though, with those southerly winds on Saturday, so it will be turning wet, particularly in the west. Some quite heavy rain there, bringing up the west side, maybe light and patchier further to the east. But the temperatures are the main thing as we go into the weekend. We have got that warming going on, so temperatures will be up to around 13, 14, maybe 15 degrees on a Saturday. And look at how warm it is over France, with temperatures 20 to 25 degrees there. And of course, on that southerly wind, that air is pushing northwards. Now, I don't think we're going to get that warm over the weekend. But we are bringing that to warm air from France northwards across the country. This is the chart for Sunday, and we see that low pressures move northwards to the west of Scotland, 960 millibars, in a very deep Atlantic low. We've still got the southerly flow here across the country. We're bringing a cold front across now, and we're starting to cut that southerly flow off, so we will see temperatures probably dropping back a little bit as that cold front clears through. But these are the upper air temperatures for Sunday. Again, quite warm across many parts of the country. It won't feel particularly warm because we've got very tight packed ice bars indicating it's windy. There'll be gales around, but it is quite warm in the upper air. And have a look at the precipitation. We see that we've got the precipitation there coming across the country. It's a weakening feature, really. It's not going to be a particularly active cold front, if this is right. But the main thing about Sunday is the temperatures. We're up to 15, 16, 17 degrees quite widely here across the eastern parts of the country, maybe up to 18 degrees. 18 is well into the mid-60s Fahrenheit. It will feel warmer than it has done for a long, long time, if this is right. Despite the fact we've got that wind, the wind will take the edge off the temperature and make it feel cooler, of course. But even so, with temperatures up to 15, 16, 17, possibly 18 degrees, I think it will be feeling really quite warm as we go through in towards Sunday. But that cold front coming across will then cut off that warm supply of southerly wind. But it won't go particularly cold. Winds are still in from the Atlantic, so just seeing temperatures dropping back. This is proper spring-like fair, really. This is what I'm trying to get across in this video, is that we're now moving into a proper spring sort of phase of weather, really. We're losing the frigid, cold easterly and northerly winds that we've had for so long. We are going now into proper sort of spring-like conditions. Now, beyond that, in towards the start of next week, the GFS wants to keep this low pressure going to the northwest of Scotland, so we're bringing in this west to southwesterly wind. Will be quite an unsettled sort of wind. But then what the GFS wants to do is start to build in this area of high pressure across France and begin to ridge it northwards as we go through next week. So whilst it may stay unsettled and showery for Scotland, there's a good prospect, I think, that England and Wales could start to settle down next week, and we're still under quite warm air with that as well, with temperatures at least into the low to mid-teens, possibly around 14, 15 degrees for quite a few of us. Going beyond that, in towards Saturday the 20th of April, high pressure is still dominating. That high pressure then continues through towards the 22nd, so going out towards the end of the third week of April, we're still seeing high pressure dominate. It's in a warm position as well. We've got warm air associated with this. This is right, we'd be seeing temperatures up to 17, 18 degrees, maybe 20 degrees, you wouldn't rule it out, which is close to 70 Fahrenheit. So definitely signs of a warming trend here from the GFS. The ECMWF is a bit different for the weekend, actually. This low pressure is kept out in the Atlantic, and we maintain more sort of anticyclonic conditions to the east and the south of the country. So as we move through into the start of next week, in towards Monday, that low pressure is being pinned out towards Iceland, actually, and the high pressure there is sitting across Central Europe, keeping it mainly dry away from the north and the northwest of the country. Now, if this is right, we're not looking at the unsettled windy conditions that the GFS wants. We're actually looking at quite a settled weekend, and quite warm as well, with temperatures up to 15 or 16 degrees. Lots of sunshine. Would be a really nice weekend if that's right. And as we go out beyond that, in towards next week, or well into next week, high pressure really is maintaining itself there to the south and the east of the country. The low pressure is still to the northwest, always more unsettled for Scotland and Northern Ireland, but really the anticyclonic conditions are dominating from the weekend into next week, throughout next week, if this is right, keeping it mainly dry and quite warm, with temperatures at least into the mid-teens. So that's a very nice run from the ECMWF. Far less unsettled than the GFS. The Canadian model, the GEM, actually sides with GFS today, which is a bit unusual. Normally goes with ECMWF, but it's got that deep Atlantic low much closer into the country on Sunday. Tightly packed as it will be windy. It's a warm wind coming up from the south, bring that warm air up, but it is a wet and not a wet weekend, but certainly a more unsettled weekend than the ECMWF has us in. And then the GM really maintains that unsettled sort of pattern as we go out through next week, with low pressure tending to dominate. Quite warm still, with winds from the southwest, so it won't be cold, but more unsettled, much more unsettled really than the ECMWF. Although as we go towards the end of the period, just signs that we're starting to see high pressure beginning to build over France. Now the GEM is often a little bit different with the pattern to the GFS and the ECMWF, and I think what we are looking at is probably an unsettled weekend. I'm not sure the ECMWF is quite right with that low pressure at the weekend. It may be, but I would suggest we'll have quite a windy weekend with some showers. Warm winds though, winds from the south, so it won't be a cold weekend, and on Sunday it could get quite warm in the east, with temperatures possibly up to 16 or 17 degrees. But I think beyond that, as we go through next week, we are seeing an increasing trend here for high pressure to really start to take over, and that high pressure in a warm position over France and Germany, developing over the country, settling things down through next week and warming it up with temperatures at least into the mid-teens, maybe up to the upper teens or around the 20 Celsius mark by the end of next week. That's 70 Fahrenheit, around the 70 Fahrenheit mark. So yes, a really nice taste of spring coming up. Finally, it looks as though the cold weather is now definitely going to be a thing of the past, and we are looking at proper spring weather. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.